Why are we called Negroes? Why are we deaf, dumb, and blind? Why is everybody making progress, yet we seem to be lagging so far behind? Why are we mistreated? Why are we in this condition, stripped of our name, our language, our culture, our God, and our religion? Here in America, all of our religious training has been gotten by the preacher. He has told us of a heaven way up in the sky that we can't enjoy now, but rather after we die.
Caught me jamming again. It's irresistible. Those ministries rolling across the screen and that beat. Oh. Assalamu alaikum, family. Welcome to another great Thursday night and another great Thursday night talks. I know I'm not the voice you're used to hearing just from the outset, just from the jump street, but you do know we're the 7th Region Coalition, and we always cover down when one of us is not around. And your brother's just serving as your host tonight because the hostess of the mostest, Sister Michelle Muhammad. We still want to give her some love, though. We know she's out there, hard-working sister that she does.
Hard-working.
We'll be doing our best to MC, but you all know you have a divine instruction that you must follow right now, and that's go get your peoples. And so I just want to say, Assalamu alaikum to my Muslim brothers and sisters. Praise the Lord to my Christian brothers and sisters. Umgawa Black Power to my Black revolutionaries and to all you peace and freedom loving people across the land. Peace and blessings and welcome to another edition of Thursday Night Talks with your brothers and your sister. And just before we turn it over to them to introduce themselves and kind of get things flowing and going, and then to find out about our powerful guests we got coming on, I just want you to go get the right people. So if you know somebody that ain't spoken to their mama in 5 years because somebody spilled grease on the floor, whatever that is, somebody who's still having issues with their siblings, with their parents, their aunts, their uncles, if you know beefs that are taking place in the street that you want stopped, if you know of conflict taking anywhere, even in your life, those are the people you need to go get right now. Go get your peoples. We always talk about settling our differences, but we don't always know how. And we have a brother that not only knows how, he's actually been commissioned to do this work. Now, that's one thing if, you know, the executive director on your job says, I commission you to do this work, right? It's another thing if, you know, a club or something you belong to says, I commission you to do this work. But when the man of God in our midst, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, brother, this work that you're doing, it needs to be done all over the country.
That's right.
And he hears and obeys, and he's continuing to do that. Some of you already know who I'm talking about. Those of you who don't, go get your peoples. All in one. You hear him arguing in the background right now. Conflict, they need to be to the table right now. And so speaking of right now, just to move us further along, I brought two friends along. Some of y'all don't remember all that, but that's all right.
All right, Rapper's Delight.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Khalila Muhammad, and there's the baton. Can you get
Oh,
it?
wait, there you go. Yeah.
All right.
In the most holy name of Allah, always bearing witness that there is no God but Allah, Muhammad is his messenger, I would like to greet you all in the greeting words of peace in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. And for my Christian brothers and sisters, please have I hope you're having a wonderful and blessed day today. Our topic of the day is something that we hide from because we always carving God out, ego. And we're going to solve problems today because in the Nation of Islam, we are called problem solvers.
That's right.
Okay. And we are not only problem solvers, but we create solutions based off of a problem that really shouldn't even exist because of a mindset that has been created. So we have to deal with the mindset, but we also have to deal with the problem, but we also have solutions to cover down. So I don't want to belabor the point because listen, I know too that I have not been the perfect person, but I'm striving to be perfect. A lot of times people like, everybody ain't perfect, but why not? And with conflict resolution, you can strive to become perfect just by being humble, submitting yourself to the will of God, rising above emotion into the thinking of God. And the only way we can do that is by conflict resolution. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to my dear brother.
Go ahead.
Look
at him with the one
I'm
hand.
gonna play along with this. Let me begin. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one God whom holy praises are forever due, the Lord of the world, who came in the person of Master Father Muhammad. I am forever thankful to Allah for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I thank them both for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I greet you in peace, dear family. We say it in Arabic, Assalamu alaikum, which of course means peace be unto you. And we greet one another in so many different other ways. We could say buenos dias, sac passe. We could say, peace to the God. We could say however and whatever. But Lyle, they're all righteous greetings.
That's
and we
right.
greet our people in those manner, in that way, in manner. And today we need unity. But there's so much conflict among us that we do need conflict resolution. We cannot escape from it. We can make the argument, oftentimes, when there's an ego, Sister Khalila, you said carving God out, but it's really edging God out. That's where we get the name ego in acronyms. When we put our egos at the forefront of things, see, there's a function for the ego.
That's
to
right.
protect self.
That's right.
But when we don't have a healthy ego, and it just becomes us and the world is revolving around us. No, man, there is no conflict resolution when it comes down to that. Right. And so how do we, when we do experience conflicts, how do we return to healthy relationships in our communities? We cannot harbor. We're going to make ourselves sick that way, and we are sick today. And so how do we become well? We need to find resolutions to our conflicts. And so what we're focusing on here tonight is the ministry of justice. This is the ministry that we are going to be focusing on. Sister Khalila, if you could please bring it up. There we go. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, through the 9 ministries, is guiding us. And this was established back in 2005. With the Millions More movement, where these ministries were introduced. There are 9 ministries in total. And tonight, we, of course, as I said, we have the Ministry of Justice that we're focusing on. The Ministry of Justice protects the rights and privileges of the members of the society and provides for penalties to be imposed upon persons who violate and threaten to violate the law or disrupt the peace. No member of the community shall forfeit his or her rights and privileges of members in the community without just cause and without due process in reaching a determination that such cause exists. The ministry is charged with the development of an independent judicial system in order to carry out its charge. It also initiates legal action, includes class actions against external entities, including governments, corporations, institutions, and or individuals who through their actions pose a threat to the essential rights of members of this community. What we want to focus on way before it even gets to a lot of what you experienced there in that statement, we want to resolve the problems that lie between us. So it doesn't come down to that. And a lot, if you think about it, family, a lot of the problems that we have, we could be avoiding those kind of problems. We just need to sit down and talk. And so tonight we have a brother that is very proficient and very skilled in that aspect of things. We want to hear from him tonight to find out how we can become further guided to resolve the problems in our community that we have in common.
And before you do that,
everybody read what that says? It says subscribe. Right? Subscribe, like, share. Look, you know, to me, look, 99 problems. I'm 992. I'm sick of you. Look, let's just call a roll, family. How many people in your personal life you know are not only conflicted within themselves, but there's arguments, unsettled family disputes, all kinds of things going on. So go get your people. And what else should they be doing, Sister Kalila, besides just subscribing or liking, ma'am?
They should Listen, our ministry is free. However, the equipment that we use is not.
Come on.
So therefore, we would love for you to just find it in your heart to donate to our cause for the 7th Region Coalition. By just going to $, 7th Region Coalition, and that's $, 7th Region Coalition.
You don't have to wait to do that either. You can do that now.
No, right there, yeah, right now, like right now.
You can do it right now.
Matter of fact, Sister Kalila, we'll put a challenge out. Every time my brother we're about to bring on rings the bell off in your head, you just ring off one of them 7th Region Coalition $ things.
Right.
It's gonna be ringing.
Praises be to Allah.
And so, look, we ask because, dear family, you know how valuable this is. And I'll say in the great words of our sister Michelle, just go to our Facebook page or our YouTube page and scroll down at the Library of Life-Saving Information.
That's right.
Beautiful, beautiful library has been created for you, family. And you know we need that because lies have buried the truth. So listen, as we deal with this tonight, think about yourself and what you need. Think about the support that we need, and think about the beautiful opportunity that we have to a brother that we're going to bring to you this evening, who by commission is dedicated to the work of conflict resolution. And you know, one of the most beautiful things I love about this, because you know we're going to tell you a few things about him. You know, I'm gonna read the bio, and as we do this, when you think it's appropriate, sister, I want people to see our brother.
Yes, sir.
As we about to introduce our brother. Yes, he goes by the name of brother. He also goes by the name of student minister and a representative for the city of New Orleans for the Nation of Islam. Our beloved brother, Willie Muhammad, who's a native of New Orleans. You all know you love that city. He graduated from Walter L. Cohen High School. He received his bachelor's degree in secondary education from Xavier University. He's married to Sister Michelle Muhammad, and they have 2 beautiful daughters, Nandi and Azire. Mr. Muhammad is also a gifted playwright. He received the August Wilson, August Wilson family, Fences, and come on now. He received the August Wilson Award and has some of his work, such as A Forced Family Tradition, A Black Tragedy, and Color Me Dead, performed. He was also a member of the Black Drama Club while attending Xavier University, and he's been honored to be one of the fellows in the Dr. Norman Francis Leadership Program, which is the longest standing president of Xavier. And each of his fellows was approved by Dr. Francis. So our brother coming to us right now is also presently teaching history and social studies. Look at Brother Tony light up. Look at him light up right there. Teaching history and social studies on the secondary level at a local high school in New Orleans. Our beloved brother Willie Muhammad is a tireless, innovative champion to the cause of projecting positivity in his community. He founded and is the host of an online show that you can get a chance to check out too, called I Have a Testimony, which chronicles the life and wisdom of such people like Rock Newman, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, who you heard here, Dougie Fresh, Father Michael Flager, and many, many, many others. The successful program has become nationally recognized as a collection of contemporary historical facts rarely known to the broader public. As we present to you our brother, Mr. Muhammad has done voiceover for hip hop. You're going to see he got one of them voices that can do that right in a minute. For New Orleans jazz musician Irvin Mayfield, titled Supreme Beings. He's developed and spearheaded conflict resolution program, which has allowed him, are you ready, to present and conduct training in over 25 cities.
Wow.
He is continuously active in the city of New Orleans, building and strengthening the relationship to benefit and educate citizens. This includes his outreach program, Friendships in All Walk of Life, which has hosted many community leaders, including Big Chief Tyrone Casby of the Mohawk Indians, of the Mardi Gras Indians. He recently was honored by the Shriners of the Masonic Lodge in New Orleans, the Oriental Lodge. You talk about having friendships in all walk of life. What other black man you know been recognized by the Oriental Lodge?
Right.
In steps toward unity and friendship, he was also named to the position, the first ever honorary lecturer to the Shrine. And he was very instrumental in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. This I know personally. Maybe we can talk about that tonight.
Yes, sir.
In helping the community survive and overcome the challenges presented by this monumental event, Hurricane Katrina. So Mr. Muhammad has worked with other activists and has fought to see law enforcement officers who injured and murdered a family. Yes, in the Danziger Bridge in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And he also has served on the advisory board for the first female mayor in the city of New Orleans. Now, I want to also let you know that along with being available for interviews and community development, and of course, conflict resolution, he enjoys working with the arts and musicians and actors. However, his first love is the youth. And he strongly believes that the success of any future endeavor, it belongs to them. So we present to you now the representative for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam in the city of New Orleans, our beloved brother, student minister, Brother Willie Muhammad. Y'all give him some love, family.
Yes.
Region Coalition, my brother.
All praises due to Allah, man. Thank you all.
Oh man, people were listening to that being like, wow, I can't wait to see this brother. I can't wait to meet this brother. Brother, you've been doing some mighty work.
Striving, man. All praises due to Allah. And, thank you all for this opportunity. And thank you all for the show that you all are doing. As I was watching the intro, I was like, man, every one of the Believers Online show has a unique quality. And what I like about this, when you all are emphasizing something that is extremely important, these ministries.
Yes,
and it's something that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is hoping that we catch on to, because it can really help to propel us and expand ourselves outside of just the four walls of the mosque, if we understand.
Yes.
Come on now. So y'all go get your peoples. You see our brothers here now, and you want to be dealing with this conflict. It's something in your bio, brother. Might as well kick it off with this. You talked about your love of the youth. So here I am, a member of the Nation of Islam, striving and working at that time I don't know. I think I was here yet. I was either in Baltimore or Miami. I don't remember. Hurricane Katrina, probably on my way here or one of the both. And here this brother is working for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in New Orleans. Both members of the Nation of Islam, never formally met until what happened, Brother Willie?
Yeah, that was I was working in this GD program, and I had convinced the CEO of the program to allow me to create a cohort where I'll be able to teach just groups of all Black males, right? And these were young brothers who had dropped out of school, had court mandated. And so prior to nothing at this time, it was co-ed. They had girls there as well at this time. But I remember the students came back to the facility just hyped. And like, oh, Brother Muhammad, man, you should have saw these brothers. Man, they were saying the same stuff you be telling us. I was like, man, I ain't never seen them that hype like that. Because them young people will tell you if something is trash. They be like, Mr. Muhammad, we ain't going back there. But they like, Mr. Muhammad, man, them brothers had us doing this. And then they came out there with suits on. As I'm here, I was like, suits on? I said, what was their name? Did they have like X's with it? I don't know about all that, Miss Mom, but you should have. I said to myself, the next time they have this thing, I'm telling them I have to go. And lo and behold, I went, and it was actually in a community center that's in the form is near one of the most formally known as one of the most notorious housing developments in the city of New Orleans, the St. Thomas Housing Project, known as the Tent Ward. Your husband would know about that, so make sure you're
right.
But we in there, and I see these brothers, and I'm checking them out, and I'm just in the stands, and I'm listening to the language. I say, yeah, these. And when the opportunity came, I introduced myself. I said, man, what mosque y'all from? And that's how I started. But they were doing the work.
And so are you doing the work. I know we want to get into how you got involved in this whole conflict resolution piece. And I don't know, Sister Khalil, if you want to play the minister first.
Yes, absolutely. Because we want to emphasize justice, right? Because the key word is everybody wants justice, but they don't know how to create justice in the environment. So we definitely
want in America, we when we think of justice, we think about people suing one another, and
right.
We talk about protesting this and that, but we never talk about sitting down and resolving the problems among ourselves, and that it really is supposed to be justice for us when we can sit down with our brother or our sister, or sit down as human beings and try to work it out among ourselves.
Right. Absolutely.
See that video, man.
We put a Black man in the White House and you're treating him like a dog. You call him a nigger. You say he's a Hitler. You say he's a
liar from the well of time.
Yeah. So, he knows now that he's nothing to them but a nigger in the White House that they intend to get out. Pardon me for saying it like that, but y'all know telling the truth. What's wrong with most of you Black people? You can't say it even though you think it. So I have to say it for you because God has raised me for that purpose. Yes, brother, I respect the flag, and I'm not going out here to kill white people. But listen to what I said. That if, hypothetically, the federal government will not intercede on our behalf to give us justice, then we're going to have to rise up and kill those who kill us. Well, if all you white people are trying to kill us, what the hell are you afraid of? It's those that kill us that need to be terrified. We're not getting justice, brother. The law of retaliation is what I quoted. It's in the Bible. It's in the Quran. It is a prescription from God to ease the breast of those who are slain, and the parents and loved ones that have to live after their babies are killed. And nobody goes to court. Nobody has ever gone to prison for what they've done to us. So yeah, I'm bringing 10,000 into the hood. Our community is a cesspool. Giuliani said it right. Y'all talk about white police killing black people, but you all killing each other more than we kill you. You didn't tell a lie. Every weekend we putting our people in hospitals. Every weekend our women can't walk the streets in peace. Our elderly are afraid. Our children are slaughtered. We've got to stop this. How can I go to Washington and you come with me and we talk about what the government is doing, and we are not talking about what we should be doing to bring peace in our own community?
I absolutely wanted to ask you about the responsibility of those in our community.
Well,
How you would
we're raising 10,000 fearless. What is their mission? Their mission is to stand in the gap between the guns. No punk could do that. No coward could walk with us and do that. You got to be fearless to walk in between guns of Bloods and Crips and guns of disciples and others killing each other. We love our people. That's our power. No preacher can go in the community and stop this. Reverend said to me a few weeks ago, Farrakhan, if I send my deacon out there, he's not going to get no results. But if you send your people out there, the young will listen. Why is that, Reverend? Because we love our people. We don't go to our people with guns. We don't carry guns. No follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is allowed to carry as much as a penknife. We are a people of peace, but we will fight with those who fight with us. So we're going into the community, but we want 10,000, but we got to train you, brothers, because you're filled with self-hatred. And we cannot allow you to deal with our people with a heart filled with self-hatred. But if you come to us, we will train you, we will teach you so that your heart is filled with love for the people that you're going to serve and the people you're going to protect. And after we train you, we go into that community and make peace between our brothers, set up conflict resolution so that our women and children can play again in the streets and our elderly can walk the streets and feel safe. That's what the 10,000 fearless are for. And I believe there'll be 10,000 rising up in practically every major city who want to help bring peace in our community.
My.
Laid that out.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes. I'm sorry, I just get excited.
Now, for those of you, I gotta tell him one more time. I gotta tell him one more time. For those of you who heard that and know you living on a street right now, feel with what the minister was just talking about. Go get your peoples. Get them. Bring them.
All right, let's get it started. Because, listen, I'm already hyped. I'm already excited. I'm just look, it's a mind-blowing experience for us to not be cowards in this time, right? So my first question to you, Brother Willie, Minister Brother Willie, is explain what justice or else is. And why is there a need for justice and the organization that you have created for conflict resolution?
When I think about, justice or else, I think about that commemoration of the historic Million Man March, where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gathered us all to put us on the mission to go and begin to start making our community safe. And as he said in that clip, if we're not going to be given justice, then there is the or else. And he pointed out in talking about that, one part of that or else is our unity. Another part of that or else is what he mentioned last night when he said, did not tell you all to watch the weather and seeing what Allah is doing, right? So Allah is doing his part, Well, we have to become together and begin to start doing our part to make the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's word bond, and what he said as it relates to this 10,000 feelers. And that's why when we were talking about the preparation for this show, we said that, the title was talking about that the work of conflict resolution is continuing. As the language that we use is still going on, because we still have a lot of work to be done.
As I'm listening to brother, lay that out, and Sister Kalila, you talk about the advent and the need for the whole conflict resolution piece. Family, as you listen to it, and then Brother Tony read into the record the ministry of justice, are you expecting the police to solve the problems between our brothers and sisters in our communities? Are you expecting the so-called social workers to come into our homes and help us with our relationships and our families? You're looking at Jesus right now, just us, And so with that being said, how did you, brother, a man of many talents and skills, obviously, how did you get pulled into this arena to work specifically across the country as a conflict resolution specialist and representative for the Nation of Islam?
When we will go to different cities, people will ask us, where do we all go to get training? And I would interpret that question as them asking, did we go to any formal places of schooling, right? And I remember we were in the city of Baltimore. A sister came up to us and she said that in that 2-hour training, that was the time that we would do it at that time. Now it's about 4 hours. She said in that 2-hour training, she learned more about conflict resolution than she had learned in her master's program, where she got a master's degree in conflict resolution.
Wait, brother Willie, excuse me, brother. Every once in a while, my headset, it just kind of, you just said something about somebody in a 2-hour training got more than a master's degree. Could you repeat that or something?
She said that she had learned more about conflict resolution in that 2-hour training than she had learned in her master's program. And I remember we were in the airport, and one of the things, because one of the trainers is our local student captain as well. He said, man, when they ask you or us about the training, he said, you got to stop saying, we didn't go to any formal school. He said, because the training that we got was in FOI class. The training that we got was in the Nation of Islam. And I hadn't thought about that. And it started making me think about the numerous lectures I've heard from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, how the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan sat down with the East Coast and West Coast hip hop artists, how he was called to be a mediator between 50 Cent and Ja Rule. And 50 Cent didn't show up because he had questions and suspicions about Ja Rule's sincerity. And when I realized, I said, man, I've been being trained for conflict resolution for all this time, and I didn't really even realize it. And so when Captain Dennis came to the city of New Orleans in 2009, we started the New Orleans Peacekeepers, where we would go out to the community for 1 hour on a Saturday. But in 2011, a brother in our mosque called me after I got off an interview, and he presented me with this idea. And I'm always looking for good ideas. And I said, man, let's do it. And we moved out on it. So by Allah's grace, we moved out, and we didn't suffer from paralysis by analysis. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we read, let me watch another video. Let me read another book. Let me go to another training. We just got up and we began to start learning as we begin to start learning as we do. And we realize that it's a simple thing as it relates to resolving conflict. It's to create something to take place that is not taking place. And guess what that is? Two rival groups or individuals having an opportunity to hear each other out and talk. And that is what is not happening. People are losing their life in these streets, or having conflicts because of perception, improper perception, misconceptions, and we're just not talking to one another.
Yes, sir.
And before we go to the next question, Brother Tony, I would like to actually bring that point up as it relates to a video that I would like to actually show in regards to just that same token of appreciation that our dear brother just mentioned in regards to that conflict resolution and how he goes about, doing that in the community.
our mediations, our conflict resolution mediations. And when we're here, we set the table up and we make sure that there's an adequate amount of space between the parties or the individuals that have sought our help to help them to resolve whatever conflict that they are involved in. And we try to make sure that when they first enter this building, that they come into a very warm and welcoming environment, because we know that we're about to engage in some discussions that are going to get very heated, that are going to get very tense, and people will be very passionate about. So normally when we're here, you will see members of the mediation team, you will see them. The mediation team will sit at the head of the table. We would also have some of the other members of the New Orleans Peacekeepers strategically placed in certain areas in the room in the event that it gets so heated that someone may try to physically attack someone else. But we haven't had that situation yet. So they are also participating or seated in this environment. We also make sure that we put some of our information out on the table so that when people come in, they can know what we're doing. So we've been successful. We have to this date 24 mediations. And I would encourage those who see this video to give us the opportunity to help you to save your life or the life of a loved one, because too many people are dying over things that are very, very trivial, and it's based upon misunderstanding, gossip, incorrect perception. Wow, that was in 2016.
Stop the beef before the grief.
That's right.
Did you all see that? Y'all hear that, family? Stop the beef before the grief.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Student Minister Willie, I have a question for you, my brother. You mentioned your work with Student Captain Dennis. If you could describe what your experience going through trainings with Student Captain Dennis has been, and what some of your greatest success stories have been in resolving conflicts in the community.
Well, with Student Captain Dennis, when he came down, you know, he wanted to find a way of how to get those in the community who may not be Muslims, but still want to be engaged in some type of effort to better our community to participate. And so he came up with the New Orleans Peacekeepers, right? And so with Captain Dennis, one thing, when the minister talks about gifts and talents, one thing I would have to bear witness is that Captain Dennis is a motivator of men. He's a builder of men. And he often says that people call him a repair man because he repairs men. And man, listen to me, brother. I've seen Captain Dennis speak, brother. He lights people up. So one of the unique things when he came down to start this initiative, people just thought it was just going to be just this meeting of just everybody talking. He told everybody, get up. And we went walked around the community. And when we walked around the community, we had people who was just on their porch. They got up their porch and came back to participate in the closing of the thing. But as it relates to some of the success stories that we've had, we first started off just thinking that we'll just solely be dealing with conflict between brothers and sisters in the streets. But what we're realizing that conflict goes beyond just the brothers and sisters in the streets. We've done conflict mediations between two former sisters who were business owners. They worked in a beauty salon and they fell out. We've done conflict mediations between a lawyer and a businessman. We were even services were even used to try to help resolve a conflict between something involving the mayor of the city and another public official, right? So one of the most memorable ones that I can remember is when we were able to, by Allah's grace, to prevent a potential shooting, where this brother got out of his vehicle going to this educational program, and he felt like these gentlemen sitting on the streets were scheming on him. Long story short, somebody came and got me. I got involved, asked them, hey, what did they tell you? They didn't tell me nothing. Every time they just looking at me. I said, yo, are you involved in any street stuff? He swore that he wasn't. So when we were able to bring this brother together with the brother who lived at the home, by that time, the brother who lived at the home, his friends were no longer on the porch. When we knocked on the door and I told him what was going on, how this brother was thinking about getting his gun and shooting everybody on this porch, this brother knees buckled. And he said, for what? And I told him, he said that y'all were scheming on him. And he was like, man, this is where I live. Why would I do that where I live? My family is. When we brought them together, The brother shared what he felt. Like, man, every time I come, y'all laughing and this and this and that and that. And the brother listened to him. And he said, brother, we saw you standing on the side of the street. He said, we weren't looking at you. He said, we were looking at those group of girls who were standing on the same side of the street you were on. But something took place in this brother's mind where he felt they were talking about him. And he was very close to getting his gun, spraying that porch. He could have drove off, and in the news, it'll just probably say that, yo, this has something to deal with drug related or gang related or something like that. And it had nothing to do with that. Now, it's not to say that some of these things are not over drugs and stuff like that. Some of them are. And I tell people when we go into the city, just go back and look at all of the murders that have taken place in your city. I guarantee you, anywhere from 15 to 25%, even 30% are murders that are over just people who knew each other and the tempers got out of hand. A neighbor shooting somebody because he keeps parking in front of his house. Two relatives getting involved. So I said, what if we can what if we can resolve those? Man, and then any city, the mayor, a police chief will be singing, they'll be giving parades if they can say that they were 30 murders less than the previous year. You know, so those are some of the things. And we just try to get involved, man. We just try to get involved.
So, Brother Minister Willie, on that note, I want those who are listening, because you still should be going to get your peoples, because we want to stop the beef before the grief. Don't go get them after the funeral. But you said something so key, and I want us to start thinking about in our personal lives and the stories that we've heard about trivial murders. 25 cents. He stepped on my shoe.
Yeah.
Come on.
He looked at me wrong.
Yeah.
I thought this. I thought that. We're so filled with self-hatred and self-doubt that we think everybody's our enemy. And here we have a brother with us that through his spirit and his love has now developed a complete program around conflict resolution. Now, I want to know, Brother Willie, how did the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan find out about your work, and what did he commission you to do?
Well, you know, when the minister spoke in Houston, when he was gearing up for the 10,000, the 10-10-15, I wrote him a letter talking about, when he talked about conflict resolution. And he was talking about stopping the violence. And I wrote him a letter. And I think on that Rock Newman show, our captain called me. He said, man, did you hear the minister on Rock Newman? I was like, no. He said, man, he's talking about the same thing that we submitted in the letter, because normally when I write the minister, I'll let our captain, he proofreads it for me, right? And the minister was talking about it. So after 10-10-15, myself and formerly Brother Jesse Muhammad, we did a conference call where we were just going over some of the principles of it, right? And that Monday, something took place in Chicago. Brother Abdul Qiyam went up there and he sat with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on that Monday. And he went over the whole presentation that we had. And it was from there that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan sent word back to me via Brother Abdul Qiyam. He said to let brother know that he wants to use the model that we have been doing here in the city of New Orleans since 2011 as the model, the national model for the 10,000 Fearless. Wow. And that's how I started. And we've just gone to work, you know what I'm saying? And some cities have had various success because it's something that has to be worked, you know. And I often tell people when I come to the city, like, are you inviting me here because you want to show that you're compliant to the instructions of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, or do you really want to do the work? Because in order to do it, you got to consistently keep pushing it. And from the stats, I know you might be able to, you're not able to pull it up, but I sent it to you, sister. We just recently created a info sheet, right? And it has like some visuals of the statistics. You're going to see that a large percentage of the conflict mediations are initiated by people not calling the hotline. They contact one of us in the stuff. When you see where it says the 63%, right? I know it's very small for y'all viewers, but they contact us. And that's based upon relationships. And this is where the teachings come in. One of the many areas where the teachings come in when it says friendship in all walks of life. And because of the friendships that we have, people contact us because they may not call the hotline. They don't know who's on the other end,
Right.
you know, but if we have friendships. And so this is why it's important for us to develop friendships. If you want to begin to start putting some type of dent in the violence that's taking place between those brothers, like I know in Jacksonville, Florida, they had these young brothers who are hip hop artists making a song dissing one another, right?
And talking about the murders.
Heard
that
about
they
the
actually,
murders, yeah.
That they did in their songs.
Right. In order to be able to get to penetrate that, we have to develop a relationship with them. When they see us, oh, that's brother so-and-so. So then when we have their ear, we can say, hey, man, any event that you all have an issue, would you consider calling us? You're a multi-millionaire rapper. You about to blow it over some street stuff. And what's interesting, if you go back and Google those brothers, those same two brothers, I can't think of their names. They both were on Vlad TV on separate shows talking about how they want to resolve the conflict.
Exactly.
They really want to resolve it, but a lot of times they don't know how. And then also they're thinking, man, it's so wild out here. I got to get him before he gets me.
Right.
And then resolving conflict is viewed as, oh, that's weak. Right.
Right.
And let me show you just how bad this thinking is. How it's just not. We see the brothers and sisters on the street because that's easy. You know, that's where the news gets. But think about that pastor that recently got robbed in New York.
Right.
When they ran in his church, right? He was recently invited on D.L. Hughley's show, and D.L. Hughley must have went after him by being so flashy. After he got off the show, he went live on Facebook, and the first suggestion.
This is pastor you're talking about now.
Yeah, it's a pastor.
Pastor went live.
Yeah.
Okay.
The pastor went live, and the first suggestion that he had to resolve how D.L. Hughley insulted him was, let's have a boxing match. And he, you know, we put it under the stuff as it can be for charity. And I'm saying to myself, look at that. And I've talked to some people, and I posted it on social media. And I used to be this way too, because we all come up hearing this. Man, I wish we can go back into the days when we were fighting. But it's those days that have evolved into us using weapons.
That's right.
And a civilized person doesn't go from a misunderstanding to the very first thing is some type of physical confrontation with boxing gloves or whatever.
Right.
That's not what civilized people do.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? But now that's a pastor. So if you take the pastor and he thinks like that, we shouldn't be surprised when a young brother running on the streets is thinking about, let me go get a pistol.
Right.
We saw the thing with Will Smith. I know there's various views on it, but if you remove Will Smith, you remove Chris Rock and put these two individuals in the neighborhood, we would have been reading about somebody shot or killed.
Yep.
I have a question, Student Minister Willie, just in light of all of these factors that really prevent us or delay us sitting down and dealing with one another. In some cases, or I say in many cases that you've dealt with, have you found that conflict resolution is not an overnight process, but rather a process that takes time?
That's a great question. You know, we have been 99.9% successful with everybody who's reached out to us. And here's the reason why.
Time out, brother. The headphone. It just went
99.9%.
99.9%, family.
And let me tell you why. It's because the people who don't want to resolve a conflict, they're not calling the hotline. They're not reaching out to us. But we have had some that they were not buying into it, but we were able to persuade them and get them to the table, right? And what happens is these are our three desired outcomes, really two. One, that they leave the meeting saying whatever ill feelings that they had toward one another is now gone, and they can begin to start having some type of harmonious relationship. That's the golden apple. The second one is that they leave the meeting where they may not like each other, but at least they leave the meeting saying, as long as you don't tell me anything, I'm not going to tell you anything. We good, right? And that is what it is. And from that standpoint, after that happens, we follow up with them to make sure that everything is taken, is good. Now it varies. We've had some people that were beefing with one another, and then after that, they begin to start having a working relationship. We have some people just like, listen, don't tell me nothing. I ain't gonna tell you nothing. We good. Right. And we're fine with that. But the key thing that we're noticing, I'm telling you, man, is like we talk about one another, but not to one another. Like, if you look, and this is one of the things I tell people, you want to get some training, just go on YouTube and pull up celebrity beefs, hip hop beefs, and look at these people who could easily get a telephone number from somebody and say, give me his number. I want to call and find out what's going on. They don't do that. They start going at each other on social media. Right. And then by that time, you got people all in their ear, when all it would take, like, think about with Jay-Z and like the little issue, like he said he didn't really have an issue with Fat Joe, and Fat Joe had came out recently and said that their issue was really him. He said, I was really jealous and envy. And when they asked Jay-Z about some of these past beefs, he said, man, all of that could have been resolved with just a phone call.
Just a phone call. How many more human beings would be alive, family? Right. With just a phone call? How many more young people would be alive if this program was in your city, if it was in our schools, if it was in our marriage counseling centers?
Oh, man. In our mosque and our study groups, because conflict is inevitable. You're going to have it, but we should learn the skills on how to peacefully resolve it. We're going to have it in the mosque. We're going to have it in the study groups. We're going to have it in the churches. But how should we do it, right? How? And the minister, he gave a whole lecture that's on YouTube titled "Settle Your Differences." That's right. How could we have the atonement process that we say is divinely inspired and still be walking around in the mosque with chips on our shoulders about one another?
Won't even return the greetings.
And the minister in that lecture, "Settle Your Differences," he said, if you walking around the mosque and you're not returning the greetings, he said, report them to me because they need to be put out. And it's not to say that they're going to become, not to say that people haven't done real things to people, but we should at least have a way of how to in a civilized manner, how to sit down and address our issues. But once again, we do so much talking about one another and not to one another.
Right. Wow.
I'm going to find that lecture. Yeah. I'm going to put that lecture in the chat.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to do a segue to another video that I thought that was very interesting in regards to you giving some guidance in regards to manning up.
Oh, I know what video that is.
So if you ever begin to start feeling down about what you see in our community, turn to this one verse, or this one chapter in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37. It's called the Valley of the Dry Bones. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Valley is a low region between two high areas. Valley is the biblical way of the scholars, where the biblical foreseers who wrote the scripture, when they saw our condition, they gave the word valley to what's known today as ghettos. It's talking about a people who are living in a very low existence. But the scripture prophesies how the people of God would have the mark of the beast on their forehead and the mark of the beast on their hands. It's not talking about someone walking around with 3 literal sixes on their head. It's talking about people's thinking will be beast-like. And if their thinking is beast-like, those produce actions, so their actions are going to be beast-like. So they're walking on the level, even though they have walking on all twos, they're walking spiritually on 4s. So God put his prophet in the midst of these dry bones. And God said, Ezekiel, I want you to prophesy to these people who are the people of God, and I want to ask you, can they live? Ezekiel was placed in the valley of these bones. He saw their condition. And when God asked him, Ezekiel, can these bones live? Listen to what a prophet who God had already showed his power said. He said, God, only you know. That's how some of us feel when we see the shootings and the rapes and all of the mayhem in our community. We wonder, God, will we ever have a change in our condition? So if you don't feel bad if you ever ask that question, because even prophets ask themselves that question.
That was, I wasn't able to make it to the commemoration of the commemoration of the Million Man March that was held in Jamaica. I know y'all probably, when y'all are right in that area. So we put on 1,000. We put on 1,000-man march, and by Allah's grace, we were able to get 1,000 brothers, man. And one of the things that we did, we had where they can text, and where it will be follow up, where there were certain initiatives that they were able to get involved. So brothers joined these mentorship programs. For a couple of years, we were doing daddy-daughter dances. We had people signing up for STEM programs. We had the conflict resolution. So, and that was just following the example of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, trying to do something here in our city. And we have a long way to go, because, you know, we're doing this. If I had a fraction of some of the financial, the budget that some of these programs have here in the city, man, we will be able to do so much. And I'll share this with you. You all probably have it in your city, where there's these anti-violence programs that are backed by the city, right? They call them the interrupters. They call them cure violence, whatever it may be. When they brought that here to the city of New Orleans, one of the brothers who's one of our chief mediators, when they were hiring people to be a part of like their leadership team, he was the only one that had an actual experience with conflict mediation.
Wow.
And he was working there, right? He was the only one. And like, if we had the money, like right now, we're about to go on this fundraiser. We're about to raise some money and have billboards, or we might pay some of these New Orleans social media influencers to do a skit promoting the conflict resolution, so we can get the blood off of our hands.
Come on, brother.
You know, so that's some of the stuff that we're trying to do.
Speaking of getting the blood off of our hands, I'm sitting up here listening to this beautiful gift that we've been given. Not just a gift given to the Nation of Islam, but a gift given to the world at the bloodiest time in the history of our planet. I got to ask you, brother, tell us about your path to the Nation of Islam.
Oh, man, that's a long story there, my brother. Man, I'll say this. It started when my father left my mother, right? She was pregnant with my youngest brother. And I remember my mother begging my father not to leave. I was 12, right? And I remember my uncle coming up to me and saying, "You have to be the man of the family." I'm 12 years old, on my way to make 13. I didn't know what a man was, but I said, okay, then that's what I need to be. Let me figure out what a man is. So I said, conversation I'm having in my mind as a child, where am I going to go to find out what a man is? I said, I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to look at those in my environment, and I'm going to listen to rap music. So you can imagine where that took me, right?
Right.
Not good. So I'm chasing this corrupt understanding of manhood, right? And I remember the movie Indecent Proposal came out. Right. And it was about the man with the million that want to sleep with this man's wife. Right. And I remember me and my friends on the street corner, we talking crazy. Like, man, for $1 million, whatever our little girlfriends were, whatever, we like, yeah, man, you could do this. I don't even think we probably was saying like for 10,000 or 5,000. It was so crazy. God. So as I was engaged in that conversation, I was engaging in it, but something inside of me didn't really feel it. But I didn't want to come out and say, nah, man, we shouldn't do that, because it'd have been like, oh, you a simp or you a sucker. And I didn't have the knowledge to be able to articulate why that's crazy. Some days pass, I'm sitting at home at night watching cable access TV, flipping through it. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was at Southern University in New Orleans. And the part, look at God, the part that I happened to click on was him talking about the movie Indecent Proposal. Wow. So that got my attention.
That's
and
divine intervention.
He said, I wish a man would ask me about sleeping with my wife for any amount of money. He said he'll be picking his teeth up off the ground. And when I heard that, immediately, I didn't know much about him. Immediately, I said, that is a man. And from that point, I started trying to learn more about him. My oldest cousin.
How were you at this time?
I was probably at that time a junior in high school. So you might be like 16 or something like that. right? So I had cousins who were in the streets, and I had a cousin who was going to college. So he would come home during the weekend with his college friends. I'm listening to all their stories. Then I'm listening to my other cousin stories who are out there in the streets. And one time they were saying Farrakhan was coming, and they went, and I didn't go. But one of his friends who stayed down the street, he will always get the Final Call newspaper, and I would go there and ask him, "Can I get the paper? Can I get it?" And I started reading. He had a VHS tape of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on Donahue. And I mentioned Walter L. Cohen because I always mention that in my bio, because Walter L. Cohen was considered one of those schools like Lean on Me. Have you ever saw the movie Lean on Me?
Okay.
Right.
And when people would meet me, they were like, "What school did you go to?" St. Aug, 35. And I would say Cohen. They was like, "Oh Lord, you went to Cohen." So I always use that to show where you can come from.
It sounds like Nazareth, but
yeah. I took that VHS tape and asked my teacher, could she play this to our class? Oh. She was so impacted. That lady could have got fired. She was so impacted. We watched that video for 2 days straight, all of her classes.
All the classes.
So
all you teachers out there listening, these are divine instructions. So
I started going to the library, reading up about Malcolm X. I had the book Malcolm X, and I was my teenage girlfriend at that time. I was so amazed by the book. I wanted her to read it. I gave it to her. I didn't complete it, or I didn't even get to the part where he started he started slandering Mosaic Elijah Muhammad. I gave it to her. She lost it. So I never got a chance to finish reading that book, right? And it's a divine intervention. I don't know how that might have impacted me. Then there's a brother in our mosque right now. He's known as one of the greatest motivational speakers in the city of New Orleans. Ask your husband about him, sister. Yes. Stan Schofield. Okay. Stan Schofield had the St. Thomas Project and 3rd and Barone got into this big old fight at Cohen. So they brought Stan in. And Stan had dudes out of the project getting up crying, right? So he came to the school one time. I'm sitting in the back of the classroom chasing his idea of manhood. And he telling the girls about, you don't want to be none of these little boys to use you and make you into a hoopty. And I'm sitting in the back saying to myself, I wish this old man shut his behind up. He messing up all the games. This is what I'm thinking. But in the back behind him was some books that he had spread out on the chalkboard. And one of them was Message to the Black Man. And I'm sitting there and I said, message? Well, that means somebody got something to tell me. Black man. I said, well, I'm a black man. I said, I want to see that book. But in my mind, I said, when he turns around, when this thing is over with, I'm going to steal his book and run out the class. As soon as I said that, he stopped mid-sentence and whatever he was talking about, he said, and don't ask me to see my books. He said, because people have been stealing them. I said, damn. So it wasn't until college that I got the opportunity to read Message to the Black Man. I was friends with this brother from Chicago and his brother from Detroit. And the brother from Chicago was a Negro. Like he went to all white school. Yeah, he went to all white school. He said, America is a melting pot. There's no racism. And I couldn't really penetrate him because I was taking African American studies. I said, man, you need to go talk to the African American studies professor. We went into that lady's office. She just drew her hands. She was like, baby, I don't know what else to tell you. I
can't do nothing with that
and
one.
She was trying. She couldn't penetrate. And I said to myself, I know what he need to talk to. He need to talk to a Muslim. And I saw brother Jason, who's our student captain. He went to Xavier. I think I saw him walking across the school campus in a suit and bow tie one time. And I hadn't told him nothing, but I noticed that, right? So I said, man, let's leave this thing. So we left out of our office. We went and sat in the middle of the courtyard. And here come brother Jason, just in regular clothes. I said, yo, man, aren't you a Muslim? He said, yes, sir. I said, man, can you talk to this brother about Jesus, black? And I tell you, Jason started running it. Brother, it was like, I imagine being in a movie theater where you sitting in the very front row and all you just see on the screen. I felt like that. Everything he was talking about, concentration camps, I was literally seeing it.
Wow.
And then when he got ready to leave, he took our information. They wanted to go walk the yard. I couldn't get up. My head felt so heavy. He took our number. He brought us to the mosque. Brother Harold was teaching. Man, Allah be pleased when, if you ever heard Brother Harold teach, he's like a flamethrower.
Yes.
And I accepted the teachings from them, man.
Praise
My goodness.
be to
Let me
Allah.
ask, was Minister Youssef on the campus at Xavier around the same time you were?
Who
from
no,
Springfield?
No, I don't know. Did he go to Xavier University in New Orleans?
Played basketball there as well, too.
What year was that?
I don't know. That's why I was asking. All four. Two of the ministers out of Xavier.
Wow. He's probably older than me, so he was there probably before me. But
look at that, man.
Yeah,
look at your
I didn't know that, man. I didn't know that.
Minister Youssef used to be a minister in Springfield, Massachusetts.
I didn't know you went to Xavier, man.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's history, man.
So are you, my brother.
Man,
so are you.
But prior to that, my senior year, you know, the brother he's the brother that's playing as the Black Captain America right now, Anthony Mackie.
Okay, my children all up on him.
His brother had this little cable access show, right? And man, listen, my speaking ability has improved a great amount. Trust me. So I was writing plays, and they was running an advertisement saying they was looking for playwriters. So when I submitted and went to the interview, they wanted to hire me as a host. So they had me as a host from this uptown urban school, and the co-host was this sister who went to like one of these prep schools. Man, I was fumbling words, had to keep retaking. It was horrible, brother, but they kept working with me. Dr. Khaled was coming into the city, and they set up an interview where I interviewed Dr. Khaled. It was in the Final Call newspaper, right? And this was the first time where now I met Muslims, because I wanted to be a Muslim, but I didn't know where you meet them, where you can find them. So now this was like in the 90s. So they got all of them brothers as security, man. So I'm interviewing Khaled, all the brothers behind them. I'm interviewing Khaled, and my girlfriend at that time, I don't know what was wrong with her. She just had this like depressed look on her face. And then when it was over with, Dr. Khaled went up to her and was like, "Sister, are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Who are you with?" She pointed at me. And I remember after it was over, I said, "Man, why are you walking around here looking like for these people to think I'm doing you something? These dudes jump on me or whatever." But that was one of the seed was being watered. I wish I could find that interview, man.
Praise be to Allah. Listen, brother, you listen. It seems like you was divinely chosen, brother.
We all
right.
We all
yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And on that note,
go ahead.
I just want before I forget, because he said something the way he was breaking down message to the black man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, it's a message, and I'm a black man. It makes me have to ask our guests. I mean, those who are out there listening and those who will listen. You mean to tell me you still have not read Message to the Black Man? Not saying it to shame you.
Right.
Even if you're 50, 60, or 80, or if you're a teenager,
right,
as our brother was. That is mandatory reading, Black family.
Right.
You are so afraid of the messenger that you won't even pick up the book and read a message for and to the black man. So I just wanted to say that. So those of you who need to go and correct that right now. Wow, yeah, I mean, I could have at least read the book, Message to the Black Man.
And just a disclaimer, it's also Message to the Black Woman too.
Yeah, it's all,
so
high five on that one.
I do have in terms of the work of Student Minister Willie, I do have a question in regards to book. I know that you've published books and you're involved in various projects in conflict resolution and to improve the condition of our people and improving the condition of the Nation of Islam itself. If you could expound on some of the projects that you've worked on, my brother.
Some of them that I worked on. You know, one of the ones I'm a lover of hip hop, right?
Come on.
You know, I know it has this toxicity and all that part, but I was honored to be invited by a brother here in the city. His name is Mac, Massive Amounts of Quality. And he was working with Irvin Mayfield, who's a renowned jazz trumpeter in the city. And they invited me to be, which something I always wanted to do, to be featured on a hip hop record. So it's called Supreme Beings. And I ain't tell them to do that. They came up with that idea on their own. So they interviewed me and then they put splices of me talking about certain stuff. And man, that was interesting. But check this out. When I went there to meet some of the local rappers I knew, but the majority of them I didn't. And when I tell you nearly all of them knew about the minister and they had never been to the mosque. And I asked them and we listened, we were at a record, just a sound check, like not a sound check, just they were playing the album, right? For a small group of people. And they talking about, I'm like Louis Farrakhan with the bow tie. And it's all Muslim references. And afterwards, I was like, yo, man, how do y'all know about the minister? Through social media. They had never been to the mosque. Just to show you the reach. So that was good. And one of the things we were doing, I want to start doing is, again, just to be every year. When I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say that one rap song is more powerful, has longer reach than the thousands of his lectures. I'm like, yo, that's not a lightweight statement.
That's right.
It's not.
So I said, well, okay, how can we utilize that? So what we will do on a Friday, we'll do this once a year. And I saw our brother, it started with brother Hashim Hakeem. This is when it started. He was in the city. And I said, man, we got to do something. How long are you going to be in the city? He said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to create a flyer. I'm going to reach out to some of these local rappers, and we're going to do a hip hop study group. So we invited them out. We paid a DJ. The first 45 minutes was us sitting in a circle doing study group, reading the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words to rappers.
Wow.
And I told the believers to try not to dominate the conversation, to let them speak. And you can hear them reading the minister's words, and they're like, wow, reading the minister's words. Wow. After we did that for 45 minutes, we stopped, hit the DJ, and let them freestyle. And of course, it was all clean. We did that several times. There's few of the videos on YouTube, and we were able to get people to come to the mosque for the first time that had never come to the mosque.
Wow.
And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan got word about it, and he was very happy. So I really try to think outside the box, man, to try to do different ideas, right? And so one of the other things that we are doing now is we were able to, I just talked to the laborers here today on a conference call to let me know about believers who have certain skill sets. Like if we got somebody who's a nurse, right? We don't have a nurse in our mosque, but if we did, I would tell them, listen, would you be willing just once a month that we open the mosque up and people in the community can come and at least get a basic information about health, and they can at least get their blood pressure checked? We're providing a service. You see what I'm saying? So now what we have done, somebody was able to give us a generous donation where we have been paying for black men to get their prostate exam through the blood test. It's a service. There was a sister, she never joined the mosque. She was interested in a brother who was processing, and she would come with him, but she's an attorney. And we opened up the mosque on one Saturday where she did a workshop on the child support system. And some of the stories that I heard these brothers talk about was amazing. She did one for the brothers, she did one for the sisters, but it was providing a service, you see? And that's some of the stuff that we're doing. So that, we know we got the conflict resolution hotline. We just had a brother in our mosque who has a degree in addiction counseling. So we just created a flyer. So when people come in, this is our Muhammad Mosque addiction behavior specialist. So when people come in, they have issues dealing with addiction, we can direct them there. So it's really just like, really just trying to think outside the box, man, and really just begin to start utilizing what we have to put it in new ways. You know what I'm saying? Like at one time I was telling our sister captain, and she did it for a while before COVID, to begin to start taking the classes that they have for the units, but presented to the community in a distilled way.
Right.
Like they did one about sewing. There were sisters coming who wanted to sew.
Right.
They did one about how to take care of your husband, where it's not the full MGT class, but it's the stuff that they will need. So that's what we have the talent there in the actual mosque, and that's what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I view the minister like this. You all are from Florida, so you'll understand this example. In Florida, you have these orange orchids, arches. Orchids, what are they called?
Orchards, yeah.
Arches, right? And I view the minister as like, he's like a person who has one of these in his possession, but it has all of these fruits on the tree that are not being picked and used. And they're just sitting on the tree. And you know that there's a time, we're not getting any younger. There's a time slot that we got to use these things. So those brothers and sisters who are watching this, we got to come forward and begin to start using our gifts. Because if you will call every animal, and inshallah, I'll talk about this on Sunday. Every animal that was brought on Noah's Ark was brought there for a purpose.
Go ahead, brother.
Talk about purpose.
And we know that there wasn't no ark with people bringing a lion sitting next to a lamb, but that's talking about us.
Right.
Where we come from. So every one of us we are here for a reason, and we have to use our skill to glorify Allah. That's what, wow, that just made me think about something I talked about on Sunday with the man with the talents, right?
Right.
Come on, brother.
This man, God gave, the man was really God. He gave him a gift and a talent. And when he came back, one dude took 5 and made 10. One took 4 and made 8. He gave him, it's like, what you did with yours. He projected his fear on his master. Or you a hard taskmaster. You reap where you don't sow. Well, we know that was his projection, because why the other two didn't feel that way?
Right. Oh, I just took a 9 to 5.
Yeah. So what he did was he buried, think about this. He buried his talent instead of burying his fear.
On that note, brother, on that note right there, let's pause for the cause. Because here's where I got a problem with our people, but we're problem solvers. The talent in the gift, in the training that members of the Nation of Islam, both FOI, the men, and MGT, the women, have in actually stopping bloodshed and conflict resolution is so needed right now. But your fear of Islam is preventing you
to work
from walking this way and allowing our streets to run with blood.
And the other thing, one of the things that we want to do, like, I want to start training churches.
Come on.
Come on, brother.
Where just churches, whatever it is, Rastafarians, where everybody they know how to have this conflict mediation, because they have relationships in circles that we don't have.
That's right.
Right. Yes,
so,
sir.
like going back to that point, like we have to stop burying our talents because of fear.
Speaking of fear, can you expound on when you use the term fear versus accountability? Because a lot of times we do it is a fear factor. But a lot of times when you're dealing with conflict resolution, there is a part of conflict resolution that you have to deal with accountability and responsibility that a lot of people do not want to face, because now it's time to work to deal with the accountability as well as the responsibility. So we already know that there is a factor of fear, but let's deal with, okay, now it's action. What we going to do? You already know, you got the formula. Now let's deal with the responsibility and the accountability and how we can push forward in order for this conflict not to happen again. And
one of the things that we have to do, one of the things that we have to get in check that will help us to resolve conflicts is our ego.
Right.
Come on, teach.
Because you can't approach a conflict mediation with the mindset of, I ain't trying to resolve this. And we have to be able to get in check our ego. And listen to what the barber of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan shared with me when I was in Chicago doing a conflict mediation training with barbers. Of course, you're around the minister. I wanted to find out, man, give me a little nugget. He said that he asked the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan one time for some guidance, because he was personally involved in something and somebody was like saying stuff about him and he wanted to respond. but he was concerned if he was responding more out of his ego. So he asked the minister, he said, brother, the apostle, how do you know when you're responding to a situation and you're responding with your ego? And listen to what the minister told him. He said, you know, you're responding with your ego, that if in your response, you respond in such a way that you don't give them an opportunity to redeem themselves, you just completely wipe them out. He said, that's your ego.
Come on, teach.
Like, we want to respond in such a way as if we have not offended anybody. Think about that scripture in the Bible. I was just reading this the other day where this king came to this guy and said, you owe me some money, and he was going to kill him. And the guy got down and begged and begged. He might have owed the king like 10 grand and begged. And the king felt mercy for him and said, okay, I'm gonna wipe that debt away. Days later, the king come back and find that same man being unforgiving and showing no mercy to somebody who owed him like $10. And the king checked him. So it's like, we have to realize that. That's like when I'm driving sometimes and somebody jump in front of my car. You know, you had that little moment of road rage, but I stopped and said, at some point in my driving career, I've done that. And that's what we got to realize. Stop acting like we so perfect. Stop acting like you haven't offended anybody.
Right.
Because if we talk to your children, they may say, Dad, you did me this, or Mom, you did me this. Or we talk to your relatives, we have. Right. So what's our motive? So that's what that accountability comes in. And being able to say, yo, you're not perfect.
Right.
And I'll give you another story. We were in Los Angeles in a suite with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We're at the dinner table. His secretary, Sister Amna, now, right?
Yes, sir.
She motioned to the minister to take this napkin, and he took the napkin, and he had something in his nose. So he wiped his nose and he put the napkin down, always teaching. He said, wow, isn't that something? He said, the eye is not made to see inward, it's made to see outward. And he said, as a result of that, we always need somebody around us to tell us when we're going off course. We don't see ourselves. And this is where the mediators come in at. We're sitting at this stuff and we're saying, listen, man, you keep saying about how brother disrespected you, but you don't realize how you disrespected him. And if you ever watch our sister, I love these shows. I wish she would have not stopped. Ayana Van Zandt, Fix My Life.
Right.
If you go back and watch those shows, she literally had to supply people with the words to say to resolve an issue.
Right.
She had to tell them, now tell him, I apologize, baby. Can you please give me another chance? And that's the same thing, because some of us don't know what to say. So like as mediators, sometimes we say, now listen, you're going hard about how he disrespected you, but let's put yourself in a situation. If somebody would have done that to you, what would you have done? I'd have done this. I'd have done, wait, you did all of that? Yeah. But do you know you just did that to him? And then they stop. Man, I never thought about it that way.
Come on.
Because remember the times in which we're living in. The book of Timothy, it said, perilous times, men will be lovers of themselves, right, self-interest, where people only thinking about how this impacted me, and they don't see their role in it.
Wow, brother Willie, I know pretty soon this plane is going to have to do its landing, but you sneak something in on us so smooth and so quick, and it went by so fast. I gotta rewind it, brother, because it makes me have to ask a question. When you were talking about, you said, well, we were doing this conflict resolution training, mediation training with barbers, and I want us to start thinking about, and you to speak on, dear brother, key people in our community, with our peoples, just based upon their positions, who would be excellent mediators and conflict resolution specialists if properly trained, for example, like barbers.
Right.
Yeah. So what happened with that, Captain Dennis, with Brother Aaron, who's the author, who's the barber of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, they invited me into Chicago, and the goal was to train these barbers with conflict mediation, because they're oftentimes sitting in areas where they hear about what's going on. Right. So we did a conflict mediation training strictly with the barbers. It's unfortunately that, one of the things I tell people is the follow-up is so key. And this is where sometimes we drop the ball at. that follow up, you know, and we never had the opportunity to. They never followed up on what we talked about, the follow up, because we did the training, but then who in the city knows that the barbers have been trained? So it's the follow up, you know, and that's the thing. But barbers are important. Teachers are important.
Very important.
Everybody that contacts with some people, we need to know conflict mediation. And there's sometimes you may not be the person that does the mediation. Like there was just one at the school where I work at. I overheard this young brother talking to this other female student, and he was upset. So I said, "Yo, what's going on?" And he didn't really want to say anything, but she was like, "No, let me tell Mr. Muhammad." He was on a football team. Him and another football player, they were joking, and it got too far. The other football player got upset, and he called his brother. His brother came around to practice, and then there was some words about the brother talking about he was going to shoot this brother. So I know the common thread between both of them is who? The football coach. I reached out to the football coach, text him. He came and got him immediately. Then went and got the other one and brought them in the table, did the very same thing that I would do, because the principle of conflict resolution is simply this. If they don't understand anything else, one, you hear both sides of the story.
Right.
You hear from person A, you hear from person B. Next thing, get them to agree to come to a secure environment to have this uninterrupted discussion. And by the time after you hear from person A and person B, you're going to see what caused the issue. But people are not having these conversations, though.
So
I know they better be now, and they better be thinking about inviting you to their cities and to their neighborhoods, family.
Yeah, man.
It's all right to be a copycat, as long as you copy the right cat.
I have one more question for you, and this is dealing with mental health. Right now, they're using this term narcissistic.
Oh, it's being used a lot.
Mm-hmm. A lot. And as we all know, if you don't know about a narcissistic person, is a person that actually it's really a mental illness, but it also deals with the psyche of me. I can never be wrong.
Right.
They are wrong.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you why they're wrong. And then they act as the victim.
And then they tell other people that they're narcissistic, but they're not looking at themselves.
Right. And in addition to that, Brother Tony, they also want to become the victim. So now it's like, I want to tell my story first because I was victimized.
Right.
Now, a person like that, Brother Minister, how do you deal with the core of a person like that as it relates to conflict resolution?
Wow, that's a very good question. And see, this is one of the reasons why mediators are so important, because there's no skin in the game. They're objective third parties. We just meeting you all, so we don't know whatever. So when you have an objective we normally have 3 mediators that's normally participating in the actual mediation, 2 to 3, no more than 2 to 3. So when you have 3 people plus the person that you're beefing with is telling you like, yo, you really tripping. That didn't happen like that. At some point, you have to begin to start looking at yourself and wow. But that type of work it starts even before they're getting into the table, because after we've talked with both parties, we're still having conversations with them about, okay, we're going to set the meeting up. But now we have both sides of the story, and we can begin to start getting people to look at themselves, right? And it goes with that, I haven't had the experience of dealing with somebody like that, but I can imagine it can be very, very challenging that they don't see themselves
right
at this moment. But what happens at that moment, that's where Allah steps in. And that's why Allah has one of the attributes as the abaser, where he will put us in a situation where that pain, that falling flat on our face will humble us so much that it will penetrate the narcissistic. That, right? But think about this. On the opposite side of that, there are people now are just using that and describing people, attributing that behavior to people, and they're not that.
Right.
If you can go Google, I actually Googled an article where somebody used that word to say that of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Right? Now that's something. So it goes to show you that people can misapply that, right?
Oh, of course.
And we got to really find out. But we live in this time where going back to in the book of Timothy, look at those characteristics. Lovers of self, having a form of God and denying it. We live in a society that's all about me, me, me. Take a selfie, take a selfie, look this way, look this way, look this way. I got to do this, I got to do that. So it's building that side of a human being where it's starting to feed that type of narcissism.
Right.
But this is why it's important for us to stay wrapped up into the bosom of God and look at ourselves. And sometimes when we have that type of mindset, when we have that type of mindset, we're gonna stay into some trouble. And it's every one of us gonna take every problem that we're in is chipping away at it.
That's right.
Or sometimes people might be so caught up in it where it emboldens them. Now they're heading off of a cliff. You know, so it isn't, but that's the catchword. I had a lot of people saying that. Like,
oh yeah, that's the new word.
If anybody wants to do some backdrop on that, because you know we don't do a lot of studying, you know, and that's based upon the Greek mythology of I think it's Narcissia, who was stuck on his own image, fixated with his own image, and so they turned that into a psychological profile.
Wow.
You know, and
I gotta say this. Something the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said last night. When he said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have my notes in front of me. When he said about that, it doesn't, how people can accuse you of something. But he said, if you know in your hearts of hearts that you didn't do it, he said, you don't have to worry about that. It's going to be proven. So sometimes, now think about this. Where's God's hand in that? That he's allowing you to be accused of something which you know you didn't do. And depending upon their influence and depending upon how they can cry and get everybody, now they can begin to start getting other people to say, oh, he is this, he is this. But this is where knowledge of self comes in.
Come on.
Because when you know yourself after a while, you're going to care if it's 10,000 people saying that, I know that's not me. And look at the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, where every day they can beat up on him and say he's anti-Semitic. He hates people who are of the lesbian and homosexual community. He's anti-Christian. What allows this man who's up in the age as he is that can still shine like his skin is just touched by the sun? Because he knows that ain't me.
That's right.
And that's where we have to go. Listen, yeah, I got my minuses, I got my pluses and my minuses, but that ain't me.
Now, Brother Willie, we were trying to land this plane, and then you went and made a statement like that. And
let me use this biblical example. Let me show you this biblical example.
Come on.
Think about David in the scripture.
Come on.
There are people, because of their own fear, they'll try to put out your light and paint you as being arrogant.
Right.
David had just came when all the Israel army was shook because of Goliath was talking crazy to them. David just came to bring them water and food.
Right.
And David said, man, who is this low down Philistine threatening our God, disrespecting our God? Here, David wasn't even trained in the military battle of war, but his brothers who was there, his brother came out and said, and look at you, you're so arrogant in this. He talked to David real reckless. He tried to make it seem like David was saying something in vanity when he wasn't.
Come on.
But the issue was, it wasn't David, it was his brother.
Right.
So sometimes we got to be able to say, listen, yeah, I may be this, but that ain't me. And I'm not being arrogant.
So on that note,
knowing ourselves.
With that example and on that note, brother, thinking about a ready-made vessel for mediation. I remember one time I walked into a corner store. And there were these two young brothers in front of me, smelling like the herbs of the world. Right. And, you know, one of them, you could tell one had a gun right here on the side here, you know, and they stepped in front of me in the line. But meanwhile, they had a bag of purple blue chips this and red dye 40 this. Wow. And all the stuff they were getting. It was clear to me, just based upon the chemicals that they were putting into their body that they ain't ready for no conflict resolution right now. So I'm gonna leave this alone because they're not a ready-made vessel. Can you talk about a ready-made vessel?
How does that look?
It happens sometimes where like we don't force people. Like some people, man, I ain't trying to do that. We try, but we can't force you, because if we gotta force you, you never really want it, right? So this is where like that prayer that says, the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So with that, hey brother, man, I ain't trying to hear that. Well, here's our call. This is what we do. When you're ready, just give us a call.
Right.
So you can't even like forcing you. Like Allah, there's no compulsion in religion.
None.
So if you can't see us, if you drowning in water, and I tell people this initiative is equivalent to somebody throwing out a life preserver. If you don't grab it, that ain't our fault. At least I can stand before God and say, God, when he was drowning, sucking up all of that Mississippi River water, I threw this life preserver and told him, grab it with your right hand. Grab it with your left hand. He told me I ain't grabbing nothing.
Right.
Blue.
I'm gonna say this because and you mentioned Brother Hashim Hakeem earlier, he has a training for us as the FOI when we go out in the community. One thing that we say to our people, which is rightfully so, we tell our people we're here working to reduce the violence in our community. Some of our people say, nah, you can't stop the violence in our community. Listen to what I'm saying. We want to reduce the violence in our community. No, you can't do that. A lot of our people talk that way, but it's been like that. See, this is a 400-year condition.
Long time, brother.
How are we talking about enslavement? Look, we're gonna do something right here tonight. We're gonna escape. You crazy? You're gonna get us all killed. And that's the mentality that we're up against.
Yeah, and I do it when they have stuff in the city. I do this little informal experiment on social media. When I see people in the city complaining about the violence, somebody got to do something. What the mayor? Where is this? And what I do is I just post. If you go through my Facebook timeline, you'll see it. I just post our beef hotline flyer and say, hey, if you're interested and you're concerned about the violence that's going on in the city, would you be so kind just to share this flyer?
Come on, teach below.
They don't even share it. I just recently posted something. Hey, if you're so upset about the violence that's going on, in the city, we want to raise some money. Inbox me so I can see how you can help us get some billboards. Crickets. Because most people are comfortable with complaining about the problem.
That's that James Brown disease, talking loud and saying nothing.
And then because some of them, with all the Jesus that some people talk, with all the Muhammad that some people talk, don't believe that we can really change this. And this is what I tell people, and I often mention this to believers because we know this language. And I asked us the question, I'll say, how many of us believe that we have greater faith than Iblis in the Quran? Everybody raised their hand. Well, I got greater belief than Iblis. I say, okay, well, how is it that Iblis showed more belief in the resurrection of our people in this condition than we have right now? When the minister said last night, it ain't the teaching that's not working. He said our belief in the teachings.
That's
if you see in the Holy Quran, Iblis never told God that he wasn't going to be able to, that he was going to be able to keep us down forever. Iblis said, respite me till the day that they are what? Raised.
He knew there was
because they know it's gonna be, we gonna be raised. Right.
He knew. So how can Iblis have greater faith than us?
My God.
And he would get all of us except
the purified ones.
Exactly.
And
so we going after some purified ones tonight. And speaking of time, family, we might want to get ready to let our brother make some closing remarks.
Do this all night.
Yes, listen. But I want to do this. I want to do before the closing remarks. Of course, we have our tree of the week.
Tree of the week. Tree of the week. Got to get some of that fruit off of the tree of the week.
We got to get some fruit off the tree of the week. So therefore, our tree of the week today is.
There it is.
Oh, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God.
Come on.
Yes.
Matthew 5.
And that's what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has asked Brother Captain Dennis to change the peacekeepers to the peacemakers. Because he said you can't keep peace.
Unless
you got to make it first.
That's why we call them here, brother, peacemakers.
Peacemakers.
We run similar programs here, but they are called peacemakers.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." So that means that if we're not creating peace and making peace,
Lord,
then what's the opposite of the children of God?
Listen, I'm gonna send you this video where the minister said in that lecture, "Settle your differences." He said every Muslim has to be about making peace amongst our people.
Come on.
Now, when you think about that and you listen to that, and you were talking earlier, brother, and if you could, in your closing remarks, you said something earlier when we were offline. I think that was so key about, since we're talking about the tree of the week, how people always like to uplift the students of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but don't bear witness to the tree from which he comes from. And I know, since we got this scripture here, that in the book of Malachi, it talks about the duty of turning the hearts of the fathers back to the children, the hearts of the children back to the that's where we are in this peacemaking effort, dear brother. But you spoke so eloquently about that, and I just want
to think about, look at that scripture. Why doesn't it say turn the hearts of the children back to the fathers and the mothers? Why just the fathers? Because prior to and we just posted on our YouTube page a lecture by Sister Ava. May Allah be pleased with her, talking about how to create the unity between the black man, woman, and child. But prior to the book of Malachi, check this out, 2 points. Prior to the book of Malachi, there's a mention of 42 women. 42 times women are mentioned as being widows, having children, and no husband. So this Elijah comes to a group of people where the man is either physically dead or mentally or morally or spiritually dead. So he comes in. That's how you know this Elijah, because he's going to come in repairing the damage between the fathers and the black and the brown communities and the children.
Come on.
And now you're starting to see these reports about black men are more active than other ethnicities. Yeah, now they are, because of who? But check this out.
Come on.
Do you know that from the book of Malachi to the New Testament, it's a period of 400 years? Do you know that scholars say they call that period in theology, they call it the 400 years of silence? So what does that 400 years have to do with the 400 years, the people who will be a stranger in a land that's not theirs for 400 years?
Come on.
So God, the creator, knew, he saw us already going into that. And he was already making preparations down the line that after they come out of this 400 years, I'm going to have this Elijah, because Elijah is the last book of Malachi before the 400 years is, behold, I will send you my messenger, Elijah. And after the 400 years of silence, think about that. 400, they say it's 400 years of no divine guidance from God. It opens up with a man by the name, the angels told his mama his name is going to be Emmanuel, but then the parents named him Jesus. So what is that all about? But Emmanuel means God with us. And when that God will be with us, he will create and give birth to this Jesus. So that's that Elijah who's coming like a fire. He's like a fire purifying the steel, I think they said. Then a full of soap. That's used to wash the dirt off of the hair of the sheep, or the wool of the sheep. That's our man.
Yes, sir.
And that's our work.
That's our work. That is our, and we can't, I know it's hard, and I'm gonna close on this point. Like I always try to get believers just to be honest about where we are. We do have these feelings. Sometimes we see the condition of our community and we be like Moses. Man, go stand over there on that cliff so you can hear the voice of God. We feel like that when Moses went to the scientists, like, listen, man, y'all don't know what I'm dealing with. Right. Look at how real this is. even Abraham, the man who's called the friend of God in the Holy Quran in the second surah, he asked God, he said, God, can you show me how this dead nation will be raised? And God said, Abraham, do you not believe in my ability to do so? He said, I do believe in it, God. He said, I only ask you so that my mind may be at ease. So if Abraham can have, like, God, please show me, you and I can have those thoughts.
Like, one more again, God.
Yeah,
I just need you to show me one more again.
But this
for
is
all
why,
our people, you want your mind to be at ease with this conflict?
That's it. And so this is where, but we got to remember, each and every one of us here are an example that they can be raised.
That's right.
This is where we go back into teaching. If a prophet can come to Europe with not only with not 360 degrees of knowledge, with some of the forgotten technology, if he was able to come into Europe and teach these people who went from crawling on all fours to walking on the moon, to now creating cars that drive themselves, if he could do that for them, how is it that the people who God came to can't come out of the condition that we're in? And I heard the minister when we was in Chicago one time. Like the minister had shook like 200 some people in hand, but I only remember this. A sister came up to him. He asked her, what did she do? She worked in a nonprofit. And I don't remember what she said she did specifically, but I remember the minister turning around and saying, see, that's the work of resurrection. He wasn't talking to an MGT. He wasn't talking to him. He said the work of resurrection is the mental elevation of our people's minds. So wherever we see mental elevation, that's a part of the resurrection.
That's right.
Indeed.
And if we begin to start looking at it like that, we can begin to start seeing our people elevating. Has not there been an increase in the number of Black people homeschooling their children?
That's right.
Has not there been an increase? Black women are some of the fastest growing entrepreneurs. Black people are now going back to HBCUs. So we are seeing it, but we don't realize what we're looking at.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And it is happening. But the enemy keeps us focused on the poor part of our people because they know seeing is believing. So we're bombarded with negative images. And they've trained us to like swine. I posted this on my social media page. I said, people love drama.
Yep.
Even the quote unquote woke people, they love drama.
Feed off of it.
We love drama.
We're gonna start loving on this solution, dear brother.
Yeah.
And let the people know how they can reach you, dear brother.
They can reach me. You see that on IG, brother_Willie, Twitter, BROWM. I know I typed that wrong that time. BROWM. That's on Twitter. Instagram, you see it, not Instagram, our Moz page, Moz46.org. Subscribe to our YouTube page, Moz46AV. So listen, I'm like, we all are in this. We all are students, brothers and sisters. And I'm a teacher. You're a teacher in class. There's some assignments that we pass. There's some assignments that we barely pass. There's some assignments we blow out the water. But we're all students, man. And listen, with what you all are doing is inspiration. Keep pushing in these 9 ministries. Keep pushing it. Keep
For
pushing.
that we shall, and we will definitely, brother, keep pushing out gems like you.
Praise
so that
for
our
love.
world. See, we do not pretend like there are not solutions to our problem. And I have to say this, and this will be a part of my closing remarks, I guess, Sister Khalil. I just say it now. Family, look, somebody's going to die tomorrow whose life could have been saved if someone listening would have reached out for a brother like Brother Willie.
Right.
Would have reached out for people in your community that are doing this work. So no more complaining about the death and destruction if we're not going to do what needs to be done. We know how to reach, teach, train, motivate, and inspire our brothers and sisters, particularly the ones that you all say can't be reached. Brother, we thank you and we honor you for the work that you do.
All praise is due to Allah, brother. I'm striving. We all trying to continue to stay in the favor of God,
Praises be to Allah. And I want to also add, because when you specify, Brother Lau, that somebody's going to die tomorrow. The question is, why do they have to?
That part.
We have the answers. Brother has given out all his information, and he don't necessarily, he don't have to come to your door. We have modern technology. We're right down to the modern time now.
That's right.
Reach out to him via, all these. If there is no excuse to finding out the solution, but my question is, do you want to have a solution?
That's it.
Or do you want to just kill our brother just because you feel like you can and you have the power to do it?
Sister Kalila, we have more access today than ever before. And our beloved brother, student minister Willie, is doing a beautiful job.
Praise
here
be
in
to
New
Allah,
Orleans, and he's not restricted to New Orleans.
Right, he came to my city.
That's right.
Yeah, Jacksonville.
Yeah. So reach out to our brother if you're experiencing some kind of beef or conflicts in your community. Reach out to our brother, and I'm very thankful.
Please do, man.
To our student regional minister,
That's right,
Minister Patrick Muhammad here.
Mr. Patrick.
Big salute to our brother, who, Student Minister Willie, we organize according to the ministries, the 9 ministries, because of our brother. He seeks to align his mind with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
That's right.
And that's where he's taking us and wants our people to see themselves. Like, well, if I come by the mosque, if I interact with the Nation of Islam, how can I work with you? If I don't want to become a member, per se, but how can I work with you? Well, we have these 9 ministries. You don't have to be a member of the mosque. You don't have to be a registered member of the Nation of Islam. But this is a gateway for us to work more closely together, in unity, to resolve the common problems of our communities.
Keep it up, brother.
Again, my beloved brother, thank you so much tonight.
Thank you all.
Coming on this program, we pray to Allah, we pray to God that it saves lives. It impinges on our minds that if we're going through something, reach out.
Reach out.
Those of us in the 7th Region Coalition to help save lives, that's what we've been doing since 2020. July 4th, 2020, when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had put us a task against this experimental, what they call a vaccine. It's not a vaccine, but and we've been informing our people about the truth and reality of that. But now, on a broader scale, we're working on multiple levels to help save lives. So
right.
Keep tuning into the 7th Region Coalition to help save lives. Thursday night talks. Thank you for joining us, dear family.
Now, family, Sister Kalila, while this is up, I have to ask the question on this beautiful StreamYard presentation. How much does StreamYard cost for a year of operation, Sister Kalila?
Oh, probably a little over $500.
Little over $500. We've been doing this work for 2 years, over a year now on StreamYard. Family, you might want to sponsor this work. You might want to sponsor just one program. It's 52 weeks in a year. Pick your week.
Right.
Pick your week.
That's
but don't think that any donation that you give is too small. And if you just want to sponsor the whole year, you can do that as well too. But remember, family, this is life-saving information, and you're still obligated to share it after this evening.
That's right.
Brother Willie, any closing remarks?
I want to just continue to keep encouraging you all with what you all are doing, because it's inspiring me now in thinking in regards to the ministries here in our city. We've been working to get the people who are involved with the ministries of arts and culture, but it really provides, if we're mature enough, as Brother Tony was saying, we can provide a space where people who they may not be interested in Islam, but they're good people and they want to be involved, and we got to figure out how to do that. So
I got a gift for you on that note, Brother Willie. I got a gift for you. All right. I don't know what week the show was, but I know it was one of our broadcasts in December. I know it was December because I had COVID. I remember that, right? But it's a show that we did with the Ministry of Arts and Culture that featured some Grammy-nominated artists. And when you show your people that trust me, they will be inspired.
Well, I'm gonna look at that, man, because I'm telling them like, listen, we got to do something. Stop being this paralysis by analysis. Like, come on, man, just do something. Do something, you know. So thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Give everybody the greetings, man. My family and I was in Miami. It was a couple last year, so we did a little vacation. That Miami sun had me looking good, boy.
Hey, brother. No complaints here, brother.
I saw you went to Wynwood, which is considered to be graffiti mecca, brother.
Yeah, that's the art district, man. But thank you all. May Allah continue to bless you, and we'll be hearing from you all soon. All right.
Yes, sir.
We thank you, our dear brother. Y'all give our brother some love. That's brother student minister Willie Muhammad, the conflict resolution, learning to be a master in the guru, coming to the
goat.
City.
Following the master. You saw he was resolving some conflict last night, Jack.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Woo. On that note, family, we're not a gang, we're not a clique, we're not a crew.
Here it comes.
We are the 7th Region Coalition, and you know we love you. And so y'all know we got to throw up the set for the what? 7th Region Coalition!